This is Unit 1, Day 2 notes, and today we're talking about segment addition. The overlapping theme of segment addition is simply to take part plus part and equal it to the whole. So remember that as we proceed. Points P, Q, and M are collinear, which meaning on the same line. Point M is between points P and Q. So what do you think the word between means? A lot of times people will say between means in the middle, but it's not necessarily always directly in the middle. It can be, but it could be in other places as well. So my definition of between is inside two other points. So to sketch a picture of what this could look like, here's one point, there's another point, and there's another point. They're collinear, and you have your P and Q on the outside, and there you go. M is between it, but it's not directly in the middle. Number 1 says, shown below, point F is between E and G, which is true. Write an equation using symbols to describe this relationship. So that's the first thing we got to do. We're going to write an equation to describe this relationship. The distance from E to F is just part of the entire line. The distance from F to G is another part of the line. Now, I could combine those two parts together and I would get my whole. So this is where we're going to use part plus part equals whole to help us write the equation that they're asking for. And then the equation would read EF plus FG is equal to EG. So again, that's the equation, and that's what is expected of you throughout this process. Write the equation down. Notice when I wrote the equation and I wrote down the segments, I did not include the segment bar. And I want to make a side note that when you do not include the segment bar, you are referring to the length of the segment or how much it measures. If you're asked to name the segment, you have to write the bar. So again, if you're describing the measurement, do not use the bar. If you're naming the segment, use the bar. All right, so let's continue. The next thing it wants us to do is to find the length of EG. Well, from the picture, it tells us that EF is 2.75, so let's write that directly beneath EF. It tells us FG is 8.95, and we're looking for EG, so bring EG down. And if you notice, you would simply just add the two segments together and you will know what EG would be. So if you plug this into the calculator, you should get 11.7 is equal to EG. All right, on number 2, it says point B is between A and C. So again, the first thing they ask for us to do is write the equation. So again, it's part plus part equals whole. So the equation for this scenario would be AB plus BC equals AC. Then they want us to find the length of AB. So we're going to substitute the information that we do know. We don't know AB, so carry it down. We know BC is 5.8. We know AC is 13.2. So when you see this equation, you'll notice that we need to subtract 5.8 from both sides to get AB by itself. And thus, when you do that, AB will equal 7.4. So let's just go over some things I expect to see every time just to make sure we thoroughly understand. I want to see this equation as well as this equation before you solve any problem that you're asked, and then proceed to answer the question. Please show your equations before you dive in to solve your equations. The reason that is I want to stress that so much is because you're going to have algebraic expressions, and thus writing the equation out first would help you know exactly where to place things. So let's do number 3. Again, part plus part equals whole. So that means xy plus yz is equal to xz. So if I substitute what I know for about each part, I would have 3a plus 14 is equal to 5a minus 4. So now I solve this algebraic equation. The first thing I would do is subtract 3a from both sides, which would result in 14 is equal to 2a minus 4. The next thing I would do is add 4 to each side, which would result in 18 is equal to 2a. And the last step is to divide both sides by 2, and 9 is equal to a. Now, that was step 1, find the value of a. Step 2 wants us to find the value of xy. So if we go back to the beginning, we know that xy was equal to 3a. So that means now that we know what a is, we're going to substitute a with 9. And so xy would give us 27. Number 4 doesn't have a picture for us, so we're going to draw it first. So draw our line segments. It says B is between A and C, so it's going in alphabetical order, A, B, C. And then label the picture with the given information. It says AC is 4x minus 12, so that's the distance from A all the way over to C. AB is x, so that's this segment. BC is 2x plus 3. So now we're going to write our equation. We have part plus part equals whole. So that would give us AB plus BC is equal to AC. So to substitute now the given information, AB is x, BC 2x plus 3, AC is 4x minus 12. So now solve the algebraic equation for x. Combine your like terms first. X plus 2x gives you 3x. Then subtract 3x from both sides. So that will give you 3 equals x minus 12. Then add 12 to each side, which would give you 15 is equal to x. So go back in and read the directions. That was step 1. Now we have to find BC. BC was 2x plus 3. So now that we know what x is, we're going to substitute it in and replace it with 3. I'm sorry, 15. So that's 2 times 15 plus 3. So that will give you a grand total of 33. Number 5. Again, you do not have a picture. You're welcome to draw one if you need it. You don't have to draw one if you don't. It says y is between x and z, so it's in alphabetical order. X, y, z. So label what we know. XY is 11D. YZ is 9D minus 2. XZ is 5D plus 28. So now set up the equation. Part plus part equals whole. So now it would be XY plus YZ equals XZ. Now in the equation, we're going to replace what we know with the algebraic expressions. So this would be 11D plus 9D minus 2 equals 5D plus 28. So combine our like terms, 11D and 9D give you 20D. Subtract 5D from both sides would give you 15D minus 2 equals 28. Add 2 to each side would give you 15D is equal to 30. And divide both sides by 2 would give you D is equal to, I'm sorry, divide each side by 15, and it would give you D is equal to 2. Notice I didn't show every detail that time. If you get stronger in algebra, you won't have to show every detail either, but show the result of each detail. That's what I need to see so that we're on the same page. Again, that was first thing, find the variable. Now we find yz, which was 9d minus 2. So that's 9 times 2 minus 2, which would give you a total of 16. On number 6, it says J is the midpoint of HK. Now, midpoint, that's a new word. Midpoint is, as described, it's the point in the middle. So not only is it between, but it is the point that is directly in the middle. So when you draw your picture as best as you possibly can, try and put the point in the middle. And it was J, so that means H and K are on the outsides. Another way to illustrate that that point is in the middle is to include tally marks on each part. Those tally marks tell the reader of your picture that those two pieces are congruent. So whenever you see tally marks on a segment or a side of a figure, the tally marks represent that those sides are congruent. Because if you're in the midpoint, then the length between H and J is going to equal the length between J and K. So this setup for the equation is going to be slightly different than before. We don't need part plus part equals whole for this situation only. We're going to use part equals part. When it's the midpoint, you use part equals part. So that means HJ is equal to JK. Now you can substitute the algebraic expression. HJ was 6x minus 10. JK was 3x plus 5. And now we can solve for x. The first thing I would do is subtract 3x on both sides. When I subtract 3x, I'm left with 3x minus 10 equals 5. Excuse me. Then I would add 10 to each side, which would leave me with 3x is equal to 15. Lastly, I would divide by 3 on both sides, and I would get x is equal to 5. Now, when I go back up to the directions, all it asked for was to solve for x, so that means I'm finished. And this concludes your notes for this lesson. Thank you.